Time to smash it up on a Monday night. I am joined by senior recruiting analyst, senior portal analyst for Warchant.com, Michael Langston, here on Warchant TV. My name is Tom Lang. Pardon us for being a few minutes behind, and thank Michael Langston for making time early out of his busy schedule tonight. Our own Ira Schoffel is not available. A good development behind the scenes. Ira's okay. Everything's fine. But it came down at the last second. So, Michael, good evening to you, and thank you for coming on early. We appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well on a Monday, and certainly we shift and adjust to whatever we have to do. So let's roll this thing.
Let's roll this thing indeed. It is presented by our friend and longtime Nole fan, longtime Warchant.com supporter, State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. I don't know if he's going to have a vanity photo shoot like the Arnold Schwarzenegger ads. I don't know if you saw those during the NFL game.
I did.
For the Super Bowl. Maybe that's an idea, Russ. Hit us up behind the scenes. Let us know if you want to do something like that. But Michael, it's been you're past the halfway point of this 3-week run of high school recruiting again, where there was signing day, then there's the portal, the never-ending world that is recruiting. You can follow Blow by Blow, Warchant.com premium recruiting board. Michael Langston has the latest on individual players there. But this was kind of the subdued but important Junior Day weekend that just wrapped. What are some of your thoughts, Michael, from what went down over at the stadium this weekend?
Yeah, a really solid weekend. I think again for FSU, if you compare them like each weekend, they're hosting around, I think this weekend it was around 16, and then the weekend before was a little more than that, probably around 25. And I think people complain because you don't have 70 in there on a weekend, but it's just I've talked to a lot of different families, and it suits their situation better. You can spend more personal time, and I think that's really paying off when you watch a lot of these recruitments that they've been after, like 5-star Jamie French, 5-star linebacker Zayden Walker, and then last week or this past weekend, 4-star defensive lineman Trent Wilson. I think it means more when you have more quality and personal time with these guys, where you can do a lot more things. They can experience a lot more. It's not just you're visiting the school, because a lot of the visit is about them connecting with the coaches and seeing what connections there. A lot of these kids kind of have a feel for what FSU is and what the program is, and the facilities speak for itself. But I mean, that personal time is vital in these junior days. So I think the way they do it is really it pays off, and it helps them. And I think they've made a lot of strong moves for a lot of top prospects the last 2 weeks, and certainly they'll do that again on this third week. So I'm very impressed and very very intrigued and impressed of what they've done so far, even in this early window. I think you're going to see some decisions come down the pike in the spring. I think they will add a good force dome. I think even you could see possibly half the class being done around the spring or summertime. So I think these early junior days are important, but they're not everything, because kids are going to be visiting throughout the spring. When they start spring practice, there's going to be a lot of kids want to see. I mean, this is the highest I can say. This is the highest value I've seen from recruits, of wanting to see what this team looks like in a practice setting. That's the setting I think a lot of recruits want to see the most. So there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of buzz, but there's certain guys that personally they want to get quality in-depth time with, and the only way you accomplish that is when you bring in around 20. And so you don't want to bring around 40, because then it kind of gets diluted, and you get to experience the visit, but it's not the same kind of personal connection with the staff. So I think overall it's been really strong.
Well, one thing I'd say is I'm really excited to see what spring practice looks like too. There's so many new players. There's so many open roster spots, or if not roster spots, more accurately starting spots on the roster. There are a lot of reps up for grabs. It's going to be fun. Hopefully, there are going to be a lot of high school players that check. We know there will be, but that check out all of those practices as they occur in March and April. Michael, there's one player that I really, really want to ask about. It's Solomon Thomas. It's the offensive lineman that Florida State got a yes from. I think it was, right around signing day last month, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. But this is one of the top offensive linemen in the class, no matter what service you're talking about. And, Michael, when you guys were over there at Moore this weekend, you snapped photos with him. I mean, this looks like an athlete who plays offensive line, not a big dude who has to, who has to become an athlete or be athletic. This looks like an athlete first. Just what can you tell me about the recruitment of Solomon Thomas? And then again, this opportunity for Florida State to be a little bit more, the ratio, the coach to player ratio is smaller. So that means they could spend more quality time and build the bond with somebody who's going to be a very critical part to this class.
Yeah, I mean, Solomon was one of my favorite interviews, even though he was only a junior at that time last year when he really almost laid the the pipe bomb type of interview. I call it that we did with him after the Miami game, and he was very clear. Like, look, I like the way FSU recruits me because Alex doesn't hit me up all the time. I'm not a guy that checks my phone a lot. He just tells me he'll check on me, and it's like, and he's very direct where he treats Solomon like he's already one of his players. He's critical of stuff he doesn't do, and certainly just there's a there's a fun connection, but there's also a serious connection of he trusts Alex a lot because of the way Alex does it. It's not a pitch, it's not a stuff. This is what it is. This is what it's going to be. I'm not going to blow your phone up, and I think that approach really was one of the reasons I think this one moved so fast for FSU to get his commitment. Short. I think he was already committed. That Miami weekend. I think
Mhm.
he's already told him like, "Hey, I'm coming. That's my guy. That's the guy I want to be with." And I think this weekend, he got there Thursday. He spent majority of the time all with players. Just went through players. Went to, I think, even sat him in a class with a few players and just to experience what they do and just doing things that just kind of going through the daily routines of what players do. Then he got to see the tour of duty, and he liked that the work. He loves working. That's kind of his mantra. Where he's big on just work ethic, time, time you spend in film, and so he got to experience all that different stuff. And then Saturday he got the junior day treatment, which is similar to just, hey, this is what it is. Show them around. They have time where they're sitting in meetings. They get to see what the coaches go through with their players, and it's a lot of I call it just basically a fancy word for an unofficial visit, but it's basically just to show them kind of the daily routines they go through. And Solomon's locked in. He's very solid at FSU. He knows that's where he wants to be, and I think but I go back to that interview he did in the Miami game where FSU just really their way of doing stuff is unique compared to other teams where other teams are usually telling you like, okay, we're the great at this, we're great at that. FSU is usually like telling you what it is,
Mhm.
right now, what it is, what it's going to be. They're not like pitching a lot of stuff, and just a guy that is a fun kid that is very direct and a no nonsense kid. It's almost like he's like the he's like the Alex Atkins version of a recruit. If
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he just they kind of they're almost feed off each other, because they're so naturally connected in their mindset.
I know it's a little bit different because he connected with this player. This coach did when he was in eighth grade, I believe. But it
Yeah,
almost sounds like Trick at Rodney Hudson back in the
yeah,
day. With
and he camped at FSU as a freshman. That's when he got his offer. I remember seeing this kid. He was massive, moves well, so powerful. Quick hands, feet are really quick for a guy that size, and as people can see with the pictures, he's not there's no problem checking the boxes off the hoof of looking at him like this guy. If he can block, you got a hell of a player, and he looks the part and everything. And his family was there this weekend, but just a also a very warm, open kid that is just tells you exactly what's on his mind. So that's why I call him the recruit version of Alex, because that's how Alex is as a coach. Just he will lay it out there like this is what it is. There's no sugarcoating or pumping it up. I mean, sure, I'm sure they praise what they do with development, but overall, I think it's mainly just this is what it is, and this is what we want to be, and this is what we strive to be, and this is the way we are off the field. Probably saw somehow interaction Alex does with his other players, and that I know I've heard got him excited too, but because everything's what you see, and that's what Solomon told me from the start. He's like, I want somebody that I know this is what it is. This is the truth. This is what it's going to be. Just tell me. I don't care how bad it is. I mean, I'll judge for myself if I want to be there. And he's a kid that fell in love with that, and certainly a great start to their 2025 class, getting what I consider, a 5-star prospect when I watch Solomon.
And he projects, Michael, do you think, at least in the staff's mind, to be a tackle for sure? He's a little on the shorter side, talking about height, at least at this point in his high school career. But then again, he's just coming off of his junior season. So do you think that they like him to be a tackle for sure, or is it still open and up for debate?
I think it's open because he hasn't really gone into the exact position. I think he's one of those guys that can play both of them. Like I say, he's very powerful inside. He's very powerful second level, hitting the second level guy. But he's also so quick with his hands outside that you can play him out there and you feel really good at the tackle position. So I think that's kind of a wait and see with the frame and just what fits him the best. He's been at FSU several times. He worked at the Seminoles Showcase last year, and I remember I can tell when Alex is liking a guy, and that was a guy that was like a sponge of just he would make a mistake and then bam, Alex would correct like a hand placement or a technique or a foot stance or whatever, and it would immediately you see the direction like immediately, and then you see domination. So it's like he's very quick on picking up things. That's why I've told people like those are the type of players that is an Alex Atkins guy. We talked about back then when, hey, this is a Trickett guy. Well, this is an Atkins guy because he fits the exact mindset he looks for in an offensive lineman.
We'll be talking to some newcomers at Florida State, all transfers tomorrow morning, and
There
you'll
you
get
go.
those videos on Warchant TV. Malik Benson, Devontae Brown, Jalen Brown, and TJ Ferguson. I believe that's Alabama, Miami, LSU, and Alabama again. Those are the 4 players that are talking for the first time as Florida State Seminoles. Stay tuned to Warchant TV for that coverage tomorrow. We'll have all of those individual videos for you. Michael, something that comes up with those players when they first step foot on campus, whether they're recruits or transfers, is what are your first impressions of the tour of duty? And usually they laugh and usually they say it's not for the faint of heart. I'm wondering, it sounds like for Solomon, of course, he likes to see that because he's about the work. Do you
Mhm.
hear any of the other kids giving feedback if they just so happen to coincidentally be on campus at the time where they can watch one of those workouts? Does that leave an impression on a high school kid?
Oh, it's a big impression. I know it's one of the big reasons. Hiking Williams, who's a former 5-star, that one of the reasons that really that things started shifting his recruitment. He watched the tour of duty. Now, I will say when they watch the tour of duty, it's more exciting. When you're participating in the tour of duty, it's pure hell. I mean, a lot of kids say like this is really freaking hard. Like really, I don't think people. I mean, unfortunately, we don't get to see a lot of these things. I think we usually get the last one, but they are very vicious guys. They are really, and, a lot of. I hear a lot of from the people that are connected to recruits. They tell me like, yeah, a lot of our guys think they're conditioned well until they get there to the tour of duty, and then when you're out there and you see a bunch of trash cans, you kind of feel like what's coming up. It's just going to be a lot of it's a lot of CrossFit type of stuff, and just it's brutal, but it's also it makes an impact on recruits when they see this. It's like because it tells them, shows them this is the type of work they're going to bring. So you come to FSU, the work is going to be extreme. This isn't just hey, you go to fun. It's going to college and playing for a great university. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into these tour duties, but it's a very positive thing in the recruiting aspects of when they watch it. Now, when they go through it, that's a different
Yeah.
story because it's a lot more crazy. But I think overall, it does make a good impact, Tom.
Well, that's funny you bring that up too, then, because if Hakeem loved it, then he should have known better. Because reports were it didn't go very well for
It
Hakeem
didn't.
in his first tour of duty, and
Yeah.
that helped. Ron Dugans will tell you on the record, he's like, man, he need to get in shape, and then once he gets in shape, he'll be fine. So it's funny you can see what's coming, but maybe you don't understand what's coming.
Yeah, you see the work, but then when you're experiencing yourself, it's a different thing. I think Dugans has joked about that of Hakeem, and it was a struggle. Even Norvell, it was a real struggle because Hakeem is from Stranahan High School. It's a great school, but at the same time, the nutrition and the development and the stuff you do is a little bit more intense and extreme when you get to the college level, and so it's tough. Even kids from great schools like St. Thomas Aquinas and schools like that. It's like it's just it's another level of conditioning and planning to get your body right, and you're working, I think, different muscles that maybe you haven't worked as much frequently. So I think it really challenges, and it kind of, I think Mike prepares them, because when Mike talks to the recruits every time, he tells them like, look, this is going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done. So that that kind of signifies, like, if I heard that, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna get myself mentally ready for this.
Mike could be stone cold serious about that stuff too. There's a certain look he gives you.
Hmm.
Now, I will say to everybody, about 300 plus of you right now, hit the like button underneath the video. In about 5 minutes time or so, we're going to take questions from Michael. We're going to take questions from Michael, and that'll go till about 7:45. It's a more abridged version of the Smash tonight. But all the thoughts on this past junior day, if you've got questions about the upcoming junior day, the portal is kind of settled, but maybe there's a question about a kid who was on campus this weekend. I believe an Ivy League kid who was on campus
Right.
this weekend who's interested in Florida State. If you got those questions, put them in the chat. Director Ben will queue those up in about 5 minutes' time. But Michael, I do want to ask about one thing on the side, and Hakeem Williams' name comes up. The Battle's End announces today that they have
Yeah.
another agreement, another year with Hakeem Williams. Always a good thing, because those questions came up a lot in the chats and on the boards. Like, hey, seeing a lot of announcements. What about Hakeem? I want to ask this from the portal perspective. When we have
Hmm.
portal visitors, I have to imagine that the Battle's End's reputation for being professional and buttoned up and offering legitimate opportunities to players. Again, trying to be careful with the language here, but
Yeah.
the Battle's End has to be, its name speaks for itself at this point. Michael, would you agree with that? What do you hear in those circles? Because it's crazy to think it's only about a year old. That's wild.
Yeah, it's they've done an extremely good job, with everything, and I kind of go back to this when I get this question often about NIL. I was like, one, first off, FSU's doing phenomenal, guys. It's a massive jump to when they first started. They do incredible work, but at the same time, this is a combination of, it can't be just everything NIL for these guys that are just all money all the time. They're not gonna. It's not gonna be that. It's going to be a coveted thing of you fitting exactly what the culture is at FSU. If you don't fit that, they're not going to covet you. But I think they do an incredible job. I think it's a very positive development among recruits. They know, and whether it's a recruit or it's a portal kid, they know that if FSU covets them, it's going to show. Whether it's the Battle's End or just in general the staff and liking them. So I think they do a good job. Juggling both. I think both entities do a really good job of, they're connected to what they're both doing. It's like it can't be just, okay, give me a good deal. Battles in. It's about, you have to have goals and meet certain things, as far as a culture of what FSU is doing and what Mike Norvell wants to do to fit just FSU. Not every kid's going to fit. That doesn't mean, and just because you have really good deals that the Battles End probably gets with certain prospects, that doesn't guarantee that they're coming here. But I can tell you at 100% certainty, in my opinion, they are doing extremely well from the NIL side. Very well.
We'll be back in 15 seconds after this from State Farm agent Russ Voorhis.
Contact Russ Voorhis for an auto quote today.
Supports Florida State in the way of endowed scholarships. He supports Warchant.com in the way of sponsorships. He's been doing so since the beginning of Warchant.com when we said, hey, sponsors, anybody want to jump on board? Russ Voorhis is one of the best Noles I know. Michael, I know you can say the same.
Yep.
Legitimately, any big event, any sport, anytime, Russ will talk to you about it. He'll be at Hotel Indigo when we do our pregame shows. He'll be in the booth or an executive suite in Charlotte for the ACC championship games. This guy lives it, just like you all out there do. If you're a Nole fan, support a Nole like yourself and State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. You see the phone numbers there below for the 2 brick-and-mortar stores in Jacksonville Beach and Orange Park. Those offices are available. You can have an in-face or in-person face-to-face meeting with Russ Voorhis. But if you live in Georgia, you live in Alabama, and Florida, the entire states of, he can help you today. Head to russvoorhis.com. If you're listening on the podcast, that's russvorhis.com. Head there today and support one who supports us. And Michael, he said it, Warchant.com has pushed the community, the Florida State community, has pushed him to a different place business wise. So we appreciate you
Yeah.
all out there supporting Russ. You know it, Michael. Your phone will blow up with questions from Russ.
Yeah, Russ is great. Russ does a great job. Loves the Seminoles, and I'm not to give away all my insurances, but State Farm is certainly one of them that I I definitely use. And I wish I had somebody around that was that I knew about Russ before that when we started. And Russ is about as good of a person that you'll find that you can connect with. Loves the Seminoles, but he also loves what he does. He loves helping people.
Yep.
That's the way he's always been. So if you're looking for one, man, that's the guy to go with.
All right, so I'm going off the board for the first question. So it's from Lee, because it's not really a question, but I want to get your thoughts, Michael, because you get to talk about it, recruiting in the portal, but sometimes people want to know what you think about the team.
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah, they do. They do.
the building blocks, you got the building blocks. What about when they're finally all there and you can construct with those? So we did a video, we do a segment on the Cameron show, Michael, W's and L's. We pick, wins and losses. Jeff went 12-0. Usually he's more pessimistic. He was 12-0. I said 11-1 in 2024. You have any initial thoughts? I mean, you say, guys, you're a little too pie in the sky. Like 10-2 is fine. That's not a bad season. What do you think when you looked at that schedule and you saw Florida State had 3 different bye weeks and all the things that the fall is going to be?
Yeah, I really like the first part of the schedule. I think everyone would pretty much agree with that. The first part of it seems to set up pretty well. And then the bottom part, it'll be a little more challenging. But I was kind of when I was thinking about this, I was going to go with the 11-1 thing. But then the more I studied it, I'm like, a lot of their toughest games are at home. I think the one circle game for me is the Notre Dame game. If you can get through that game, I think 12-0. So I'm going to go with Jeff. I'm going to say 12-0, man. I think they're going to get by that game. I think they have a quarterback that knows how to handle those experience situations. I am concerned with those 4 games that they have, with not so much Charleston Southern, but just the Florida, the Miami, all those in a row. I think certainly that can be a little bit challenging. But like I said, the Notre Dame game is the one I really circled that I think is going to be the challenging one. But I think they're going to find a way to get through that. I think the rest of them really set up pretty well for FSU. But overall, I like how it sets up. So right now, based on what I know is coming in, they have coming back. A very strong group coming back, a very strong group of defensive linemen, and I love what they've done at the edge position. Yeah, I'm going to say 12-0 for now. That's kind of my pick.
So then on that note, 12-0, all wins. So you're just picking from wins. But if you're looking at the calendar here for recruiting weekend opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of the calendar, I mean, Clemson seems to stick out like a sore thumb in terms of the opportunity. Is a game against Florida too late? Is a game against North Carolina not high profile enough? Like, does it need to be Clemson to be that big weekend for the coaching staff to bring in the top players? What do you think?
I think it's no brainer that Clemson and Florida are going to be the 2 biggest weekends. That they host kids. I don't think it's too late because that's the game everyone circles. You're going to have the most kids at that Florida game. It's almost every year it happens, guys. If it's Miami they're hosting or there's Florida, there's going to be the most. That's going to have the one where you have the most recruits on. I think a sneaky weekend is that North Carolina weekend because I think that's one that will draw recruits in there. It's right there in the middle of the season. You always have to have a significant one that's big early. With somebody like North Carolina. So I think those are the 3 weekends that I got circled. You could see these other weekends emerging, later, like the Cal weekend could be something that you get a few guys in for September. But overall, those 3 weekends I think are going to carry the mantra. It's a very good home slate. I mean, that's a very good home slate when you're talking about Clemson and Florida the same year, and then you also have now North Carolina in there. I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for FSU to host a lot of talented guys. But certainly those 2 weekends with Florida and Clemson are going to be vital.
I wonder what the rules would be, and I'm speaking out loud because the NCAA changes these things every 5 seconds. Just look at the transfer rule and how many times you can go from place to place. But like if you hosted a playoff game, I wonder if a recruit would be able to go to that. Because the first round's going to be on campuses this year. Anyway, just
I think they would probably. It's just my guess. It's like I don't know any rule guys, but my guess would be they would do kind of a similar thing they did with, Georgia in the Florida game, where if whoever team is home, they can host kids. Or if they don't do that, I can see them where they can buy the tickets for the kids and they can go to the games, like the LSU FSU game. That's what they did, where drove a lot of kids, top recruits went to those games, watched them. You can see them in person. So it's kind of two of those different scenarios, but we'll have to see. I don't trust the NCAA to do much right. So, I'm just expecting the worst. So, but
Yeah.
I think those are the two scenarios that you would have.
First questions from the chat right now. And again, about 10 minutes or so, 10, 12 minutes of questions from Michael. First is Florida Man in Texas on Monday
Okay.
Smash. And that's about Rick Stockstill. Florida
Yeah.
State bringing back an old name.
Love it.
And, Rick did a pretty good job just a season ago by traveling down to Miami, collecting
Yes.
the check and destroying the Canes. Florida Man in Texas wants to know, does Rick help at all in terms of recruiting, transfers, both, or more of a game day impact? What do you think?
I think it's the impact of everything. I've known people that worked around Rick that I know very well. Obviously, when I was a young kid, that's when Rick played. So I'm very well dressed. I'm born and raised in Tallahassee. So, I mean, if you don't know who Rick Stockstill is, I don't, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that's a guy that you grew up around. Very good at connecting with people. That's what he does. So I think, and on the recruiting side, when kids are on campus, he'll be able to have a direct connection. Very good scouter. That's the thing I've heard a lot about him, is his scouting and game plan is very good. So people, and scouting is the main two things I've heard, and just a massive addition for FSU to add a former head coach, to get a guy in a former Nole that really understands what it is to be a Nole. So he can, you know, it's nothing against the previous guys that were there, but this is a guy that's a Nole. So anytime you get somebody that has gone through it, whether it's Rick Stockstill, Odo Hagens, or Ron Dugans, or whoever, it just, to me, it's a bigger, closer, more heartfelt impact into the school when they know what it is. When they say the no way, they know what that means. So I think when you have somebody like that with his scouting prowess and his people skills and how he connects with recruits, it's a special way. And they showed that with that team he had, at Middle Tennessee State, and what he did with so little. Imagine what he does when he gets some really top guys. I think it's going to certainly generate, a good boost in recruiting.
Jane wants to know, in terms of the junior day this weekend, this is the last one of its kind.
Yeah.
Any early names that stand out to you that'll be on campus this weekend?
I'm still compiling that list, Jane. I know Kobe Howard is a four-star wide receiver out of he's originally out of Pensacola Catholic. He transferred over to South Florida. He is expected to be there. I have a lot more names on there. There's a few more that I can't remember off the top of my head, but it will be, I'm told, a very strong weekend, a very strong one, where there's going to be a lot of top tier guys, more so than it was even this weekend. Probably similar to the first weekend, maybe a little more. I've heard this is one that's probably going to be the most heavily attended one. It's kind of because of the last, because then you go in the dead period. So I would expect a lot of good names on there. Jane, I hope to get that by Wednesday, that I will get it up either Wednesday or Thursday. But it'll be a very strong list. But that's one guy I know. But I'll have a lot more later. Hopefully, we'll get it as soon as we can. These things are hard because a lot of this is, yourself confirming, with these kids, and a lot of times kids don't know their travel until around Tuesday or Wednesday
Mhm.
to make sure everything's checking out. So I will have that soon, but it will be a strong list. You can pretty much expect it's going to be some top guys.
Yeah, how competitive does it get with the schools themselves in terms of trying to get kids on campus in this window? Like, we know about it, Michael, with official visits or December visits relative to signing day, but I would imagine there's competition even for a January weekend like
It
this.
is. Yeah, it's tough, and you're battling other teams, and that's why I say you want to do the 20 around that range, of each weekend, because you're more the chances are much higher if you're hosting a certain low number, because they want to be around, they want to experience stuff. They don't want to just, this isn't a kid just going to see the campus and, hey, Doak's beautiful. And I mean, they want to be around the coaches. They want to have time around these guys. They don't want to just go where it's like game day and, you see the game and that's it, and you don't get to experience a lot with the coach. So I think they want to experience the full effect. So that's why I think it's much higher chances FSU gets somewhere. And then they got some really good visitors coming in March. They're going to be almost every day. We'll see if I'm back by then with some of them, but I think it's going to be a very strong week. But yeah, it is very challenging, Tom. It's something that you have to recruit to a sense of just getting them there. So, I mean, once you get them there, I think it's a big deal. And the main thing is just for me, it's just no matter what weekend it is, whether it's March, April, whatever, February or January, not February because that's dead period, but just January in general. It's just the main thing is getting them there. As long as they're there for some visit, I think that's all you want. That's all FSU asks, and they just, as Mike Norvell said when he first started, give me a chance to earn your trust. And I think a lot of kids have seen that of what Mike has done, and they did that. They trusted him, and now they see some massive results. So I think FSU is a very hot team that a lot of top recruits want to see. The fact that had a kid come all the way from Camden, New Jersey, to see them, not too far off from Tom,
Yeah.
you know, you know,
Yeah.
but came all the way from New Jersey to see FSU. I think speaks to kind of their level and their extension to how many guys just want to see what this program is doing now.
Outside of my window, I can see jerseys right over there. Right over
Okay.
there. Al wants to know well, it's about when do you think it's going to pick up for Florida State? You answered this a little bit earlier, but he's seeing verbal commitments, RPMs for Georgia, Ohio State, Auburn, outside of the 4 verbals. When do you think it's going to pick up for Florida State?
Yeah, I think March and April, I think will be very heavy for them. I think you'll see some decisions pop in. You might see some, right after January and into February after this final, junior day. I think you could see some decisions coming up in weeks after that. So I think it'll start to pick up the heaviest though in around the March area. I think that's when we'll see a lot. So wouldn't pay attention too much of the crystal balls or the RPMs or whatnot. FSU has positioned himself very well. We're already releasing some of the hot boards. I think we've done the offense already. The defense is coming up. You'll kind of see what I'm talking about when I break down these positions, because I can tell you the 2 positions that were a struggle last year that I had to put together. The first hot board was defensive tackle and linebacker, and this year when I put that together, that was a lot funner.
Yeah.
It was a lot different. There was a lot more options. There was a lot more excitement about those positions that I can see based on where FSU stands in those recruitments with the intel I'm picking up. But I think overall it's going to be a very strong year for FSU. I think the main message I've heard, Tom, is really a lot of the recruits want to see that consistent pattern of what they saw the last 2 years. A lot of fans can't understand that, but it's like longevity means a lot to recruits when you're watching the Georgias that win 10 or 11 games every year. They're in the national playoffs every year. That's kind of the way recruits want to view FSU. So I think it's a pivotal year to just keep the train moving straight ahead, maybe even a little higher.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Georgia is the hallmark of consistency. Alabama's got to prove it again, but Georgia is that standard. Let's see. How about one chaotic question? I like these fun ones, Michael. So if Dion, Coach Prime, got hired by UF this offseason, how would that change recruiting in the state of Florida? What do you think, Michael? If Dion was entered into this discussion in this footprint?
I know we're doing hypothetical, so I'll indulge you, Garrett. I will just consider that. But yeah, it'll help him a lot. Dion does really good at connecting with certain people. Now, will Florida hire him? No, that I don't see that happening. Um, I'm not going to go too much into that. Let's just say I feel FSU is much more diverse in their hirings than Florida does when it comes to football and basketball. So that's why I'm skeptical of that. Now, if you said Miami, that's a little different.
Yep.
But I think Miami's more of a threat to me than that. With that question, but I think overall, it would certainly get a boom as far as excitement because Dion does a really good job of. He's charismatic. I mean, we talk about him a lot, but there's things about him that comes off maybe somewhat narcissistic at times, but I think at the same time, he is very captivating. What he does. His message is very strong. You believe what he's saying. When you listen to him, and there's a lot of excitement around him. So I think he would build that excitement wherever he went. Now early on, now eventually you have to coach and all that stuff. So that might cause some problems. But overall, from a charismatic and connecting standpoint, the guy's one of the best.
This is an interesting answer. I like that answer a lot, Michael. Spartan Knoll, I got an answer for you real fast. Ralph, how are you? Does lacrosse start this year 2025-26 academic year? Don't ask me how I know that. I just do. But at 2025-2026 for lacrosse for Florida State. Michael, I will ask you one final question. This one's coming from me tonight. So tomorrow, as I've said, you can check it out on Warchant TV beginning around 9:15, 9:20. You will see videos posted of 4 newcomers for Florida State who are speaking to the media, speaking in Tallahassee
Yep.
for the first time as Florida State Seminoles. They are Malik Benson, Devontae Brown, Jalen Brown, and TJ Ferguson. Who do you think, Michael, Florida State fans are going to like to get to know a little bit more out of those 4? Who did you like in terms of what you heard on the trail for this transfer portal process, or maybe back when they were recruits themselves?
I think that a lot of people enjoy TJ a lot. I think TJ will be a popular one. Jalen's kind of a quiet one, so I don't know how much you push out of that. But I think TJ will be very popular. Malik was a great interview when we interviewed him on the visit, but I think TJ has a personality of an honesty and directness that I think people will love. That jumped out. I don't remember the fourth one. Who was the fourth one?
Devontae Brown, Miami.
Yeah, Devontae Brown will be really good too. But he's also a quiet one. A lot of these South Florida kids, you think they're boisterous. A lot of these guys are just, pretty quiet. I think Devontae's story, when he talks about the connection with Randy Shannon, the connection with Surtain, will be very good. I think that will captivate a lot of people. But I think TJ would be my pick.
That makes sense to me. We'll have that documented for you tomorrow here on Warchant TV. Remember to head over to warchant.com today and head there all week long as the list for the final junior day is compiled. More names will be known by midweek. That's on the premium recruiting board, warchant.com. Sign up for the website today. And that, even though it is in the first weekend of February, is that for a little while for recruiting. I know, Michael, some of the coaches get a little bit of time. They finally themselves get a little bit of time away, and you will be doing so as well. But we will have you covered on all of that as things develop this week. And lastly, all right, real last question. We'll put it that way.
Okay.
The transfer that was on campus this weekend.
Yeah.
Michael, Cornell, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. What gives there? Do you think that is a scholarship type transfer situation, a depth PWO? What are you hearing about that particular transfer?
Yeah, that's a Manny Adebi. He's from Cornell. Listed as a transfer, but it was funny when I got the list, the intel, there was mentioned of like defensive line too. So I thought that was interesting. But I was told directly that it would be a PWO opportunity. I
Yep.
know he had a really good time. I think Manny loved it. He even walked up to me. He was the first guy I saw. He's like, he introduced himself. He was really, really cordial, real funny, real fun guy, really energetic guy that you could tell just is going to be likable, pretty likable. And everything I was told that the visit went really good. He just has to see what other opportunities are there. If somebody has a scholarship one that they offer him compared to
Yep.
the FSU one that's PWO. But it also, I've seen it several times where the PWO wins out over these other schools because these kids value the FSU program so highly. We saw that, with a lot of guys. I think the most notable was Trayshawn Ward. He had a lot of really good offers. South Florida, Kentucky, those type of places. But guys get in their mind that they really want to be here. I think if the fit's there, they'll do it. But definitely a guy that looked the part. Certainly looked the tight end set that I saw, and then certainly everything seemed to click and go well as far as the visit goes. But really, outside of that, of waiting to see what other teams come in the picture, I can't really. There's not a lot to say until I plan to get more in the next day or so. Maybe I'll post on Warchant to see what's anything new that's going on, man. But I think everything was really good through the weekend.
Love the size of the player too. Fits nicely as a complementary piece if you can get him in the fold. More of a inline tight end kind of size rather than a Morlock or a Landon Thomas. Michael, thank you so much for the extra time tonight. We appreciate it. Michael has filled in tonight for Ira Schoffel, who was going to be joining us, but something came up. Perhaps you'll hear about it. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But stay tuned to warchant.com for the latest on all things Florida State. Premium Recruiting Board is where Michael operates and drives the bus. 2 junior days down, 1 to go, and any transfer portal happenings as well. Michael holds it down there, Matt Lasser as well. Wake Up Warchant coming up all week long too. Stay tuned to the channel for more live shows in that regard. 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Seminole Headlines. You'll hear a little bit more about the 4 newcomers that talked to Florida State. There's a lot coming, everybody. Head to warchant.com, hit the like button underneath this video, subscribe to the channel. It is absolutely free. And of course, if you have insurance needs, support State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. For Director Ben behind the scenes, Michael Langston, my name is Tom Lang. We will talk to you next time on Warchant TV. Enjoy your night, everybody.